And good evening. Welcome to Raconteurs News on this Monday night. It's the 23rd. It's St. George's Day, 23rd of April 2018. Happy St. George's Day to you if you're into that sort of thing. And a big happy New Lizard Day. We'll get into that in a couple of minutes. We're going to start off with talking about the new lizard and the implications and the things that have been going off. But anyway, welcome to Raconteurs News. You can hear us on Facebook Live, and you can also hear us on Spreaker. That is spreaker.com/users/Raconteurs News. As usual, I'm joined by my two handsome co-hosts. I'd like to first of all welcome Paul Webster. Are you in, mate?
I'm good, mate. I'm enjoying my holiday still. And I've got an extra day off tomorrow that I didn't know I had. Oh. So it's all looking good.
Excellent. And, of course, Andy Young's with me as well. Andy, you were the cause of the slight delay to the start of the programme that we've had tonight. Can you perhaps explain yourself to our listeners?
Yeah, my hand-built, overpowered PC has once again decided that it's going to work all week round, no problems at all. But when we go on air, suddenly it just freezes solid and I can't do anything with it. Can't move my cursor, none of the keys on my keyboard do anything. So I had to disconnect, switch it off, unplug it, unplug all the hard drives, switch it back on, try and restart it, then install the hard drives, and then eventually got back on. So sorry about that, folks. Yeah, like Tequila Lead said, it's the Russians.
It is the Russians, though, isn't it? It is. It's all them, isn't it? It's probably them that impregnated Kate, to be fair. We're using an umbrella and just... That's if she were impregnated. I mean, there's a lot of speculation online, isn't there, that she weren't even pregnant at all, that they were just going to go through this facade. And it's, it's on St. George's Day. Come on, fucking hell, have a day off, will you? For God's sake. And we get this new lizard. It's another mouth for us to feed collectively as a nation, and clothe, and in the finest clothes, and eat the finest food, and go on the finest holidays, and do all the finest things. And there's people actually outside that phoning. You were saying, weren't you, earlier on, Webby? Just give some idea about the media coverage that's been on this today.
Well, Danny Shine did a live Facebook feed from him. And he was stood opposite all the paparazzi and everything. He's just bullhorning them and saying, "What's going on here today? What are you all here for?" If you go round to the main entrance, there's babies coming out of there, dozens at a time. There's loads of babies being born. Why don't you go round there? And he's going, "Oh, there's nobody answering me." And then he starts singing the national anthem, trying to get people to sing along. Obviously, people are just taking the piss out of him, which is what I suppose Danny enjoys about the work he does. But to see people, again, with everything that's going on in the world, and think that these people are just, I've got friends who are flag wavers, and they say, well, it's not their fault. They've been born into this life. It's like a job for them. And it only takes a little bit of history research, and things start to fall apart, but nobody's interested in looking. It's a nice little distraction. We've got a baby coming in, and we've got a baby who's, they've been touting they were going to terminate him all day. They've been battling over Alder Hay for young Alfie Evans all day. And what's the media coverage about that? Well, it's which one should we watch? What should we be looking at? It's toying with people's emotions, and it's, again, in my reckoning, it's another divide. People want to look at one baby, people want to look at the other, and the opposite. The ones who are supporting Alfie Evans aren't interested in the Queen, and the one who's supporting the Queen are saying, well, this is. I think the arguments I saw, Jason, was, no, this page is for Wills and Kate, and their baby. Don't be mentioning Alfie on this, because people were just taking over the royal news feed on the Daily Mail and the Metro, and you just kept putting Alfie Evans. What about Alfie Evans? And the Metro kept coming up saying anything not to do with the royal wedding, the royal birth, will be classed as spam. So there's debates going on all over the internet about what's going on with this royal birth. For me, it's, another baby's here. It's nothing to do with me. I'm not interested in it, but people seem to get something out of waving flags.
Mm. Being slaves and bowing down and kneeling down before these people who let's face it, somebody had put. I went on one actually, just to see what the comments were, and it were one of these where it were, I think it were a pro William and Kate thing, and there were, as you can imagine, there were a lot of people put a lot of negative comments, and there were one bloke, and I thought it was the most ironic post I've ever seen on Facebook. He said, "What about all the immigrants and scroungers and criminals that are in this country? Why aren't you angry with them?" And I wrote underneath, "That's the most ironic post I've ever seen. You're talking about criminals. You're talking about immigrants. That's what you're talking about. You're talking about an immigrant family who are getting benefits that are scrounging and are far more than anybody else is. People are then having to go at poor people because they're sort of saying, well, hang on, why should I be bothered about this little lizard?" It's just ridiculous. What's your take been on it, Andy? Have you seen much coverage?
I'll be honest, mate. I've been busy tinkering about with various bits and bobs today. I really haven't seen any of what's been going on. So when it was posted in the RN room about the new lizard, I'm like, oh shit, not another one. Talk about overpopulation. They're always whittering on about that he. Phil, the alleged Greek, says he wants to come back as a virus and do something really useful, like wipe out millions of people.
Well, he should fucking realise he's already done that.
Stop his fucking family breeding like rabbits. That might help.
He's already done that. When he says he wants to come back as a virus, that's all this family are. These leeches. They're like a virus that just feed off an entire population, and the population has stood there. Well, I mean, there's a lot of what with this. I think this week were probably designed to appease people because it's the other Harry Hewitt's getting married in here on Saturday to what's her name, Merkel or whatever her fucking name is. Somebody mentioned it.
Is it this week that?
The what?
Is it this weekend that?
Yeah, it's this weekend because it's irritatingly for me, it's on my birthday. So
he's marrying Hitler's granddaughter the same week they churned another lizard out.
That's correct. I mean, what are we going to? Are we going to just sit by? I mean, my dad's is a reasonably intelligent bloke, and there were just one day, and he just said to me, he says, "I really like royal family, me." He says, "Oh, they bring so much good to this country." I said, "What? What are you talking about?" I said, "How many times have you been to London?" He said, "Oh, I've been loads of times." I said, "How many times have you seen a member of royal family?" "Never." "Right, so they don't bring, do they? There's all these buildings. That's what brings people here. The buildings, the history, the heritage. The royal family are well, they're a feudal family, aren't they? Just parasitic on the entire nation."
Yeah, well, that argument about, it brings in tourism and revenue. Well, in that case, the USA would have no tourists, and neither would France or Russia or China. So, complete bollocks, really, isn't it?
Yeah, actually, Tequila Leeds in the chat room has said it's on Cup final day, so that'll be sometime in early May, I would imagine. So it's not this weekend. So thank God for that. It's I might be able to go out somewhere without somebody going, "Oh, this wonderful wedding." And May 19th is to keep. Thanks, Leeds. You're useful for something sometimes.
I just had a funny thought, actually. It would be really ironic if either of those events, either the birth or the wedding, took place this Saturday, because we're going down to the UFO Truth magazine Southern Conference at Watford, and one of the speakers is a an interview that they pre-recorded with David Icke. So that would be hilarious, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I saw.
I've just seen this breaking news going that up to 10 people have been run over in Toronto by another truck.
Jeez.
Starting again. We're
Yeah.
getting up to May 10th. I told you, didn't I? When you're getting close to May 10th, that's when all it's terrorist, it'll be terrorist related, or it'll be reported as terrorist related. They don't have to class it as terrorist related at the end. All they have to do is say it at some point, even if it's like it's not terrorist related. It still put that little seed in people's head.
Yeah.
They're on at us, boys, and we're being distracted. So, what are you going to be doing on Cup Final day? Are you going to be watching Cup Final, or are you going to be watching Wedding, Webby?
I'm looking at this now, and I'm saying, it's looking like I'll be in work and I'll miss it.
Oh.
Well, if it's a choice between the Cup Final or Royal Wedding, I'm going to get myself well stocked up with beers. I'm going to get 6 beers and shitloads of weed, and I'm just going to get wrecked. Fuck it.
What? Not watch either.
I'm going to record them both so that then I can not watch them whenever I want to.
Yeah, but you see, the problem is we're recording them. You know, I once I'd recorded something on TV, and so that I could flash through adverts. And as I'm sitting there, and you know how you're watching TV, and then suddenly adverts come on, and it's sort of a natural thing. And I realised by the time I got to end at adverts, I thought, this is on record. I could have fast forwarded through them. So I rewound back to start at ad break, and then I fast forwarded back through them. Yes, up yours, capitalism.
Yeah, you showed them, Jason. You showed them, mate.
On a more serious note, when we were talking about this little lizard, but it's been a tale of two babies today, haven't we? Like you mentioned Alfie at the beginning, and this for me is this is the thing that's going to bring them down. These are the sort of things that are going to bring them down. There's more and more of these campaigns and these things happening where the system's just sweeping people aside and crushing them and not allowing them. You know, allow it. How do they not allow anything? Where there's life, there's hope. I thought they had a Hippocratic oath, and yet they're going to inject a baby with some of the. Well, that's what they're proposing anyway. To inject this baby with something that they give to prisoners on death row. It's barbaric.
Fentanyl. Fentanyl. They were going to give it. It's an induced coma. In fact, it's a drug that's been going around the jails that they smoke to get high. But it's like an induced coma. There's also something, I don't know if it's called gabapentanyl or something fentanyl, which is an elephant tranquilizer, which is like one drop on your skin will knock you out. That's how strong this stuff is. And they're on about putting him in an induced coma and withdrawing all the palliative care. So allowing him basically to just die. Now, there's an update that I've just come across here that's been posted that the Italian government have said they will prosecute the UK doctors if they execute this awake baby.
Also,
brilliant.
But what's Italy going to do, really? But I do understand that. I know they can prosecute the individual doctors and things like that. For me, what will happen is this story will run and run and run. It'll go illegal, and then the poor little baby may die. We've seen it before on these cases, haven't we, where there's been appeals for children and then go on, Andy. You want to say something?
Last time we were on air, we were talking about Hillsborough and the anniversary, which has just passed. And you brought up Tony Bland, and I seem to remember there being a very similar controversy around his passing, because they withdrew all care from him, didn't they? Basically starved him to death. And the reason that sticks in my mind, I was actually on a training course for selling accident insurance, and the guy who was training me was a good friend of that young lad's father.
Right.
he was actually a comedian who was on the TV show, The Comedians, back in the day. A guy called Mike Whitehead. Hilarious bloke, but I've never seen him since that training day. But yeah, I'm just thinking, it all goes round in bloody circles, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's been a number of years, haven't they, that where... Sorry, Andy, you've gone... Oh, no, you haven't gone quiet. I'm looking at you on wrong screen. I'm looking at you on Facebook screen, and I can see you doing that and talking and gesticulating, and then I'm going, oh, yo... Sorry.
I did that the other week when, I can't remember, I think it was when we had Alan on. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm talking over Alan because I saw his mouth moving. And then I realised now I'm looking at Facebook, not Skype. That was what he was doing 5 seconds ago. Can be quite confusing, that.
It can be, can't it? But yeah, like we say, I think we've done with that, haven't we? There's about as much as you can say. It took us, and we were 10 minutes late. It took us 13 minutes to cover the entire thing that you need to know about the Kate and whatever his name is, William. Is it William, isn't it? Bill. Bill and Kate's little lizard.
Juan Carlos Jr., to give him his proper title, I think.
I hope this one doesn't come out with ginger hair as well. There will be a talking point.
Will it be Harry's or Harry's dad's?
Well, I think it'll probably be Harry's, this one. It'll probably be Harry's hair.
It'd be a lot funnier if it just come out black, wouldn't it?
Do you know what? Maybe it'll be the first the first official transgender, the Royal. Who knows? Who knows? They're pushing the boat out with this stuff these days, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah. Got beyond a bloody joke.
Oh, yeah. You'll soon have them in your prison, Paul.
Say again.
You'll soon have them at work.
Yeah, just hang on one sec.
What about you, Andy? You're definitely not going transgender, not with that haircut that you've had today. It's very severe, I've got to say. It's almost as severe as mine. And I went to Richie Allen.
Just modelling myself on a bit of Jason style, you know. I think Super Lead's suggestion for a name for the Royal Lizard was a good one. What was it?
Was it Adolf?
No, it's gone back. I can't get back that far. What was he going to call him? Tarquin Leeds Jason Webby Windsor.
Tarquin. Awesome. What do you reckon? Tarquin?
I'm pleased you missed me out of it.
You're looking a bit red again today, Webby.
Say again?
You're looking a bit red again today.
I've just got out of the bath, so still nice and hot.
Ah, right, okay. Had a nice shave and all that. Anyway, listen, you listen to Raconteurs News. We've got no guest tonight, so it's just myself and the other two hosts, Andy Young and Paul Webster, and we're just going to be talking, chewing the fat like we normally do. Anyway, while we've got a guest on, it's going to be it's going to be pretty good if we can decide what we're going to talk about. Any ideas, Paul? I had loads earlier on, and I've just gone stuck. I should really write shit down.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing that today you've got the two big issues, which is obviously the birth and the potential exit of one child, which is looking like they seem to have got hold of this now. It's going to, obviously, as you were saying, Jason, this is going to get stretched out a bit now. You've got people getting run over, but what's happening in Syria now? What's happening with the Novichok? Where's this going? It's conveniently none of this is coming out again now. So it's the narrative, isn't it? It's what people want us to get to talk about.
Yeah, it's perceived, isn't it? It's the perceived narrative. Like you say, Syria's gone quiet. It's really, really gone quiet on Palestine and Israel. That's nowhere about. I mean, you're not going to get that when someone's just laid an egg, obviously. It's what we're being distracted from. I think that is where we should aim as concentration.
I mean, it's strange. It's strange why the Italians have now wanted to get involved in this. It seems contrived, because couldn't they have got involved a long time ago? Is it just coming out later? It just seems there's some reason why it's being dragged out like this, and these hospitals have been proved that they've been wrong before. I remember a case a few years back with, I think he was a young lad called Aisha King, or I think his name was Aisha King at Southampton, and they were doing the best to not to let him out of that hospital, and the parents eventually just took him out of the hospital, and they got Interpol involved in everything. They were searching for him on the continent. They ended up finding him at this hospital where they said they were going. That kid's now cancer free. He's tumour free, that kid. So they said there was nothing they could do for him then. So
isn't that the one that Lisa spoke about when she came on, when she was talking about the proton therapy?
Yes.
He actually took him, and I think they got as far as somewhere in Spain, and then they were apprehended by police. But the proton therapy clinic intervened and actually got the lad through to Prague to get his treatment.
Yeah, and again, he's now tumour free. So how can they be saying that without a diagnosis? How can they be saying there's nothing that they can do? There's other places that are saying that they may be able to do something. Well, if there's a maybe, if that was my kid, you'd be going over hot coals for that child. And you've got a system that is saying, no, we've got control of this. And that is a question as to how are these people getting control over a child that has been made by a man and a woman? How are they claiming the jurisdiction? And we know that it's due to this registering of children. It's not yours. This is what people have got to try and get an understanding of it. Yes, we can all say, it's the same with as goes for your car. I pay cash for that car. That's my car. I own it. If you give up that ownership, then you're only the keeper. And it's the basic principle as what's happening with this child. I always remember a good friend of mine who's an ex-social worker and counsellor. She was working with a family and they had 3 children taken. And 2 days later, they brought 1 child back, which was the middle child, and that middle child hadn't been registered. And that was because it wasn't their property.
Has that been confirmed, though? Is that a confirmed case? Is that a confirmed case, or is that just, it's just documentary? Is it documented, or is it just sort of word of mouth?
Well, it's documented from the woman who was working with the family, who I know.
Right, okay. That's fair enough. That's all I'm asking. To get up and say,
no, that's what I mean. I've known her for a long time, and she's done a lot of work with families. Has been an ex-social worker, because and she's suffered a lot of attacks for it as well, because she's pointing the finger at social services that it's money orientated, and people have got to understand this. Registering of children gives them carte blanche to be able to take these children for any reasons whatsoever. This is where the bleeding in comes of the named person scheme. This is all linked to what's going on with this young baby. They can't do anything. The parents are not being allowed to make decisions about, in law, their property, because it's not theirs anymore. That's how they're looking at it.
That's how they're doing it, and that's how the system's squeezing and squeezing and squeezing, and it grinds on relentlessly, doesn't it? You go to one judge, and that judge says, well, I can't overturn this. And then it goes to next judge and next judge and next judge, and it's just a continual grind. And while that's going on, imagine what the parents are going through. Imagine what the families are going through. Imagine what the supporters are going through. People that have followed this case for a while.
There's been fighting at the hospital today with police. There's protesters been fighting with the police in the hospital today. To be fair, it's not doing Alfie and his parents any favours, but the emotions must be running fucking high, because these people, they're basically saying they were going to execute a child this morning at dinner time. That's what they basically were going to do. They might look at it as, no, we weren't going to execute him, we were going to allow him to pass on, or whichever way they want to flower it up with the bastardized English language. But at the end of the day, there's options. They don't know everything. So despite all these experts saying blah, 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 they still don't know if they can do something for him. And if he's drugged up to fuck, how are you going to tell whether he's compos mentis or not? which they have got him on loads of all kinds of fucking drugs. And that fentanyl, like I said, that fentanyl is what they give to people to induce comas, to purposely put people into comas. So if you go into a coma and you've got a brain disorder like that, and your vital organs aren't going to be able to operate without machines, then that will just put him into a sleep and he'll just go. So maybe that's what they were talking about, but it is an execution really, because there's still options. You know, I don't understand anybody who would just go, well, there's an option there, you could save that child. And that's again where you get starting to get mixed up into religion. You know, Jehovah's Witnesses won't allow blood transfusions. I don't understand it, but you know, that's their beliefs. That's the way they work through life. My daughter needed blood, and even if it was mine, I'd just open me veins there and then. I don't understand it, but you know, this is what we're left to debate and talk about, while all the major stuff just seems to be falling by the way. And you know, it's only people that can do anything about it by start to talk. People will do things. People will eventually get to do things. Just, you know, one man just can't do everything, but they can do one thing to change their own lives. And I think that's where we've said so many times, lads, haven't we? If you don't start with yourself, don't get your own affairs into some kind of an order, how can you help or even pass any other advice on to others? You've got to do something for yourself first.
Yeah. I saw an astonishing headline over the weekend as I was chatting to a friend, and I was kind of scrolling through a page looking for something, and I came across this headline, and I thought, if that's not a nudge tactic, I've never seen one. And I believe it was an article that somebody posted from Yahoo, and the headline, as close as I can remember it, it's not a direct quote, was "Suicide Machine Attracts Massive Attention at Dutch Health Show." So they've got a health show and they're promoting suicide. And underneath it, I saw someone saying, "Oh, I don't know what's wrong with that. I think it could be a blessing for people who are suffering." And I thought, yeah, okay. Yeah, you obviously not really kind of read the what's going on so far, have you?
It's strange because the pioneering the first suicide clinic over in the UK as well, aren't they? Over on Jersey, they're going to have a suicide clinic. So they're saying that there's going to be all these hoops that you've got to jump through first, you know, to make sure that you're of sound mind and there's nothing else left for you type thing. But how long is it before the legislation's put in that makes that a bit easier? What if somebody's not compos mentis to decide that, and that's got to be put in the hands of a professional? Is that open to corruption? Is it an easy way to start getting rid of people? I mean, that suicide booth thing that you're talking about, Andy, I remember seeing that on a cartoon. It was, what's it called? It's not The Simpsons, Futurama. Where he's in a queue and he bumps into Bender in a queue, and they're going into a suicide booth. And it says, "How do you want to die?" And I'm going, wow, these are really, you know, they're talking about these as in jest. And then the next breath, they're saying, "Oh, look at this health fucking fair." I mean, what's the point in taking a suicide booth to a health fair? You know, it doesn't seem to make much sense, that.
Well, I don't know. I suppose it might be thought that the kind of folks who would go along to such a fair, more than likely organised and sponsored by the pharmaceutical industry, are the sort of people who are going to buy into whatever they're told by a man in a white coat with a stethoscope round his neck, or a woman for that case. You know, I'm not saying it's only male doctors that are killing people. It's obviously both varieties, isn't it?
That's true. That we are having people see a white coat and they just think, well, they must know everything, or they know a lot more than what I do. And it seems to, as you just said, I think there's a lot of good people. I know really good people who work in the health service, and they go into work to do a job every single day to the best of their abilities and look after people. But that's not how the system is set up. And the people who, shall we say, going into positions where they make decisions, they're the people that will follow the orders, unfortunately. You know, they're not putting the clever people that they're putting into these positions aren't clever because they can make critical decisions and dynamic risk assessments about things. They follow a pattern and they'll fucking stab everybody in the face, never mind the back. That's the type of people that they're putting into management positions. And I always remember, I'm not going to try and do the quote, people will have to look at it for themselves, but Tony Benn had a quote where he compared the Japanese and the English were having a boat race, and he compared the analogy to what happens with the NHS. If people can go and have a look at that, it tells you exactly how this system does. You know, they blame, they get rid of staff, and then they get more managers, and then they blame the staff that are still trying to work it. And in the end, they say, oh, look, it's a piece of shit, we'll have to sell it, we'll have to privatise it. And it seems that people are being engineered in positions in all the public sector for definite, and they are put there to make sure that the public sector services absolutely crash around people's ankles, and then they can just go, oh, we'll have to sell it, we'll have to privatise it, we'll have to get some partners in, and then everybody believes then we've sold everything off and we don't own anything, and it's bollocks.
It's a two-headed snake as well, isn't it, though, Webby? You want, once they get them in there, well, once they get you in there, I'm a prime example. Once they get you in there, they get you on tons of medication,
yeah,
and then you're a customer for life. So,
yeah.
but in the sorry, God, hiccuping, I've had my tea to that. But yeah, and so people, because of the way that society's gone, the food's deteriorated, it's all processed food, people are more overweight, people are using fast food, people don't have time to sit down and cook a meal half at time because, you know, they've both got to work. And so, you know, they're building up a customer base, and then the customer, what they're doing is they're squeezing the funds and the availability for the. So there's more customers, but there's less funds, less cash available to be able to treat them with. But there's plenty. If you're going to have, I don't know, you're going to have like £1,000 worth of tablets a month or whatever that people have to have, and they have them on NHS. And you squeeze. You're there. It's from all angles. We seem to be attacked.
Yeah. Well, paracetamols now aren't even available on the NHS. I know they're only 19p, but they're not available on the NHS anymore. It's just gonna get worse and worse. But people don't understand why they aren't liable for this stuff. They don't understand what they could do to pull this all back in their favour. And to be fair, most people aren't interested until, like I always say, until it starts touching people's lives. You know, if people now are getting parking tickets, if they feel unfair about it, they're arguing with the parking ticket places. They're getting in touch with people. How do I deal with this? But it's not until they get that parking ticket. You know, some will just pay it because it's easier. You know, people have got to understand where they keep giving all this power away and what they can do about it. I mean, I think there's so many people that are working from all different kind of angles. There's going to be a remedy put together somewhere from people's shit. So everybody can look at their own shit and say, well, there's a lot of shit in there. Let's put it in with some more shit and let's dig through it. You've got to get into the shit to find the truffles, haven't you?
Well, you have, yeah, you're right. You have. It's everywhere you look. There's tyranny everywhere you look. There's people having to protest. Protests about war. There's protests about trees. There's protests about children that they're going to execute. You know, we can't all be everywhere. Do you think that they're diluting all these problems and making all these little areas and being stubborn with them? Because the Sheffield trees thing could be easily resolved. Right, and so could the Alfie situation. It could be resolved. They could say, right, we're going to respect the parents' wishes. We don't agree with this, but that's what we're going to do because the sanctity of life is what we're. They took an oath to. In fact, do they still take an oath? They took an oath to uphold the sanctity of life. So
meant to. I mean, the thing with me is I just don't know what the oath actually means, or if it means anything anymore. A policeman takes an oath, but there again, they don't know anything about law. You know, the fact is that a constable is meant to protect life and property. That's it. He's not meant to collect revenue. This revenue bollocks has got to be put a stop to. You know, you can't keep giving people. People are asking you to give money, and you can't pay it. But they're still taking your promises to pay it because that'll help to launder money, it'll help to steal equity. People have got to start acting in the correct way. And when I say that, it's about learning about the trust, learning about what construed trust they've put on you, what mechanism we get to collapse that trust is different ways. You know, we've heard about private trusts and things like that. They seem very helpful, but there's got to be a simpler way. There's got to be. We're missing something, and somebody's going to come along one day and just go, boom, that's it. And we can start making real and proper changes, but we've got to get control of the money supply back. If it doesn't matter how many laws or anything you make, we've heard it so many times through quoted. The last 200-300 years that give me control of a nation's money supply, and I care not who makes its laws. So unless we get control of the money supply, I think we're going to be barking up several wrong trees for a while.
I've just noticed a post by Owen. Owen, if I can just mention, Owen's due to come on and have a chat with us tomorrow night. But he's not feeling very well at the minute. We're not quite sure whether it's anything serious or not, but I know you're listening, Owen. I hope you feel better soon. If you're able to talk to us tomorrow night, if you feel up to it, that'll be great. But also as well, don't worry about it if you're not. We'll sort something else. No need to worry about that at all, Owen. But he asked the question, which I think maybe kind of ties in the two sides of it here. Don't these lizards sacrifice children? And he said that's not meant in poor taste, but there's a lot of people suggesting that they do. It kind of completes the circle there, doesn't it?
Yeah. A mate of mine, Steve Williams, has just commented in the chat room that he thinks it needs to start at the top and filter down. It can't start at the bottom, as the senior managers, leaders don't want it to change. The trouble being, in my opinion, is that it's not the people that are being put into the positions at the top are never going to change that, because they're not getting into those positions unless they're just doing as they're told, unless they're just being yes men. And I see it from my level, where people have got promoted, and some of them are willing to stand all over your face to get on in their job, and they're not willing. They don't care about people. Whereas people who genuinely do care, you see that they're going to get to a position and they're not going to be allowed to progress any further. So whereas I can agree with Steve that it could do, if it came from the top down, it would be a lot easier. But the factor is that people have still got to do their own research and get things right in their own mind, even if it's, even if it doesn't look like they're changing anything. The fact that they've changed how they feel about things will change their attitude as to how they address things. And as soon as you start making those little steps, things start to change. You know, it's bit by bit, but I don't know what else you can do, because I certainly can't just walk out of the house tomorrow and just change the world. It doesn't work like that. But if you're talking to people about changing the world, then at least there's a subject about change. And, you know, until it gets co-opted by some other fuckers like it seems to, you know, that's when you start getting involved in movements. That's why I've never been one. I think you're the same, Andy. We've never been drawn towards movements, have we? We've always just done what our own shit and our own research, and you know, it's nice to go and listen to what people have got to say, but you know, we're having a conversation off air about some people that we've met on this journey, and it's the same old shit every week. You know, I mean, people could throw that at me for bills of exchange, but you can't get away from that. It's used in everything, whereas some of these subjects are quite specialist subjects. You know, I mean, it's great to go from not paying a TV license and then talking about putting commercial liens on fucking businesses and stuff like that. That's not the difficult part. It's actually getting the lien throughout to fruition and winning it. Now, somebody who's not paid the TV license and being shown liens, that's a massive gap. I mean, you know, that you can't really jump to that. So you start doing it in little bits. And even if you're just learning and talking to people, then you start to change things. I've seen it working that way. So, you know, I'm quite happy with the way things are changing. The last 4 months, doing this radio show, the last 4 months, it's been unbelievable to see that people are taking interest. Other platforms are wanting to share platforms. So people are talking, and I think that's all you can do at the end of the day is to put some fire amongst men and see who it catches.
Mm. I don't know what's going on with the Facebook Live video, but I seem to be not getting comments. Then they appear like loads of them all at once. I just did see one looking back. Cotty says, "Is Ginger? Is it a royal Cotty?" That's what Cotty. That's what I was laughing at when you were talking about something quite serious there, Paul.
I thought I've seen you laughing.
Yeah. Cotty is always. When we learn to look after our own affairs, there'd be no need for others to do it. And that's really what it is about. Learn who you are as a man, not who you are as a piece of paper or a name or a word. And I would like to say hello to Henrik. He's actually somebody I met in real life on a very regular basis. When I used to go to the pub on a regular basis, he used to bring me home from the pub. So nice to see you listening, Henrik.
Awesome. So somebody from your real life rather than your from your cyber life, because that's most people these days. I mean, how many people do you know in real life? How do you interact with? Really, very, very, very few in it. Very few. Everything's all moved online, and we'll probably get into that in the second half, social media and what's going on with that. You know, because it seems like we're all in as little boxes. If I look at my social media feed and I look at my wife's at the same time, they are completely different. I don't hardly have any dinner pictures of dinner unless Toby Lee's doing it, because he's always posting pictures of his dinner. We don't need to see him, Tobe, honestly.
He does have some nice roast dinners though posted.
Oh, he does. There's many people. I mean, that's what Facebook were invented for, weren't it? Mark Zuckerberg was sat there thinking, how can I make sure that everybody knows what everyone's having for the tea? I've got a really good idea.
Brilliant. Well, I tell you what, you're saying about this second hour, that might be a good cue now to go into the music break. I know it's a few minutes early, but I've lined up a couple of special tracks for a good friend of ours who's over in Canada. Things have been a bit tough lately, and I know he's a big fan of this band, so I wanted to play a couple of tracks for him, and it's going to be just shy of 50, or just over 15 minutes. So it's 2 tracks from the Doors, and they're both for Ricky. I hope you're listening, fella. And we'll be back in about 15 minutes. There you go, we're on break, guys.
Sweet.
Still on Facebook, though, remember. Oh, yeah, charities. Want to have a go crack at them? It's a fucking hour and all.
Who's that? Oh shit. Right, the doors. Oh. Yeah, somehow got the hard drive was disconnected still, so it wouldn't play the track. So I ended up was playing Sparks, Beat the Clock, a bit of Pink Floyd. But I've got so yeah, right.
So that's fucked as well.
Yeah. So who we've got in chat tonight? Oh, we've got Melvin back in chat tonight.
Which one are we looking at?
In the RN chat. Got to beat the clock. Oh, that'll be Heath.
We've got Jesus in there as well.
Yeah, you know who that is, don't you? You've
Not
just
sure.
been talking. You've just been talking to him.
Oh.
Jim Morrison, the Lizard King, quite appropriate. I wasn't thinking about it from that point of view. I just know Ricky really loves the Doors, and it takes him back to his youth when he hears that. Riders on the Storm. So playing LA Woman to get him warmed up, and then Riders on the Storm. Actually saw the Doors was a bit of a stretch because they were about 200 yards away, but Benidorm Bullring. They played at the Bullring, and I could overlook the Bullring from my apartment window.
Right.
So I was watching them and listening to them, but I'm afraid the Doors without Jim Morrison sound pretty shit. Or they did to my ear anyway, back then.
Yeah, I think as a frontman, I think he made it, didn't he? He made that band.
Mm. Yeah, he did. Gotta beat the clock. And what is home? Where the heart is. Oh, that's maybe, but where does what's up down at the moment? Charity situation on the. I found. Oh yeah, he's talking about foundations, Melvin. A foundation appears to overrule the trusts. Hillary Clinton has one. Barbara Bush formed one. Bill Gates has, I believe so. Something in that. But maybe. But where does charity begin? At home.
It's interesting that people are asking questions about it, though, at last, Andy.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Lisa's in.
Yeah, it was funny. We're talking about trust, and Lisa just said, I trust everybody's okay. It was quite poignant.
Oh, bless her. Ah, yes, she's listening. She says, yes, all of the entities sit within the foundation. So,
So again, Paul.
All the entities sit within the foundation.
That's what it's built on her.
What the fuck?
How long?
Another 9 minutes.
Another 9 minutes?
Yeah, it's a long one tonight.
Mm.
Just dropped. Here is the link Q has pointed us to look at. What? Oh, Lou Collins is really going into this QAnon stuff, isn't she?
Yeah.
I've seen. I'm just reading that then.
Oh, Zoe sent it you and all.
Yeah, I've just got
Facebook
it now, but I'm just reading the article. Owen said he's okay for tomorrow, by the way.
Oh, awesome. I was a bit concerned with his message earlier, but I obviously didn't want to read out his message and say what may or may not be wrong with him, just not feeling too well, you know. You don't.
He's talking to somebody in secret, you know.
Yeah, no, he's muted. Who are you talking to, Webby?
Oh, Wayne's just turned up with some kindling wood for me. I was going to have a fire pit later on, but it's an absolutely grim night here.
You've just had a bath.
So again,
you've just had a bath. You can't have a fire pit after you've had a bath. You'll stink.
Right, can you? Well, I can have another bath, you know.
No, but why don't you just have one bath after you've done your fire pit?
Because I've only decided on the fire pit after I've had a bath. What's wrong with the process of thinking here, Jason?
Whatever. You're not thinking of the environment, obviously. Two bath, man. Oh, two bath Webby.
Shit, I bet all this kindling wood's come from them trees in Sheffield as well.
Yeah, it probably has and all, yeah. You're burning our fucking legacy. I were on one of them Sheffield groups earlier, I was just reading a few comments, and there were people saying, "Oh well, they're removing trees because have you noticed that people are agitated? It's the calming, and that's what they don't want, and all this, and people are more agitated now that there's no trees there." And I thought to myself, "You ain't go on 5G, will you?" So it won't go on 5G, and then they said, "Oh, but see, that's one of the things they don't like is that we can see here in Sheffield that we've got a city of trees and we've got a city of hills." And I nearly put underneath, "What do you think they're going to do? Fucking flatten hills next? They're going to flatten hills."
I won't fucking put anything past these dickheads.
In Sheffield, built on 7 hills like Rome.
Yeah.
Might explain a lot then.
Well,
Why Sheffielders are always going out and trying to conquer the world.
got to be at 3 o'clock. Don't know what that means.
Just reading an article from the Toronto Sun. There's bodies everywhere, all over Yonge Street. Multiple pedestrians struck by van in Toronto.
Oh, Christ.
That was it.
From Super Leeds, Mr. Mojo Rising, anagram of his name, used to sign into hotels with it. Oh, a veritable mine of Jim Morrison's information. He said he went to Premier Inn the other day and he couldn't sign in, couldn't pay with cash unless he had identification.
That's ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And he's pointing out that Morrison's dad was the commander of the ship involved in the Gulf of Tonkin incident, which
He was, yeah.
is correct.
Oh. I must fucking write me idiot boards out.
What, you got one either side, one with Andy and one with Webby on it? 4 minutes. Oh, I can listen to the Doors then if you can't hear it.
Someone's asked if I'm on calibre till after break, till after the show. I think it's probably Heath.
Caliber.
Yeah, it's a non-alcoholic beer, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, he's got to beat the clock tonight in the chat.
He's got a what?
He's called "Got to Beat the Clock" tonight. Because
Right.
when I put the Doors on and it wouldn't play, it put "Beat the Clock" by Sparks on it. John sent me a couple of interesting links. One, an article from Workers' Liberty, Reason in Revolt, about Northamptonshire Council goes bust. And another one about a company called Esri, E-S-R-I, Esri.com. And it's all about global monitoring by mapping and all that kind of shit. Looks some pretty heavyweight stuff. And all used by governments, of course. 2 minutes.
Okay. Someone's just put Simon Dawson. It's sad no one can answer question. Why not? Have you got the balls to give comments or not, guys? but I can't get it to fucking scroll for some reason.
Where does he put that?
On Facebook Live.
Oh, I can't see that.
First legal corporation.
Simon's one called Simon Dawson. I don't know what he's.
Yeah, I can't, I'm trying to look at what question he's posted.
Chris in the chat room saying that thing we said with super leads not being able to pay cash without ID. He says he gets that mainly in London hotels. So they won't take cash unless you show your passport. Mandy, I think Dinny was on about that the other time. He says he's going to hotels and they're always demanding your passport. He just tells them to fuck off.
I can't find a question what Simon's talking about. So, Simon, if you're listening, you're going to have to post it again, mate. If you want a question answering. I can't find it.
I can't see it either. What we should do is, when we're on Facebook Live, in break, we should have girls in dancing in bikinis come behind us on thing.
The music's finished, so...
Wayne, do you fancy dancing behind me in a bikini? No.
Welcome back to Raconteurs News this Monday night. It's the 23rd, St. George's Day. Happy St. George's Day to you. I've said it once before, but I'll say it again. Happy St. George's Day and happy New Lizard Day. We've all been in receipt of a new lizard today, a gift to the nation. I'm not bothered about my bit, but you know, just toddle off and go and spend what you've got and leave us alone. That'll help us. That's not to the baby, by the way, because the baby's probably not even real. Probably just a cushion. Right, we're going to take that cushion out now. Here you go. Have one of these instead. Here we got this one. This one were chucked out in alleyway behind one at local schools. Yes, well, that's what's probably going on. We've got plenty of stuff going on in the chat room as well. Big shout out to Tequila Leeds, Honda 4004, and John Hull's in the chat room and on Facebook Live as well, watching double dose there for John Hull. Gotta beat the clock. I think that's Heath, but he's in there anyway. And all the people in the posting his comments in Facebook Live. If you're going to ask a question, you can you please ask a question and make it specific? Because we've had a guy called Simon in there who's he's asking why nobody can answer his question, but we just can't find it. So if you could just refresh us with that, Simon. So second half, how are we?
As good as I was first half.
Even better. Only you've got a bit more wood this time.
Yeah, there's quite a few locals to me in the chat room tonight.
Oh, excellent.
Quite a few, yeah. A couple of Lathers as well.
Maybe
there'll be a lynch mob outside your door when you get finished in ball.
Or paparazzi.
I don't know about a lynch mob. They'll all be wanting to know certain things, I'm sure.
Right, so we covered shitload of stuff in first. Well, not really. We did a couple of 2 or 3 different. Where should we go this second half? Where should we start? I've got this. I was noticing today these charity things. They're unrelenting, aren't they? These charity adverts, and I'm half expecting one. You know, after this Oxfam debacle that went off, I'm half expecting one where this is Dave. He works for Oxfam in Haiti. He's not had sex for 4 days. His bollocks are absolutely bursting. If you send £3 a month, Dave could get a nice clean prostitute. A clean prostitute. He's having to be using dirty ones up until now, ones that you get diseases off. You know, this is what I'm expecting. This is the way it's gone. Today I saw, you know, they're always using polar bears. Polar bears. They're not. They're excellent swimmers. They live on ice. There's plenty of ice down there. We know that. So, you know, down there, or on edge.
Climate change, Jason. Climate change. Where do you stand on climate change then? What about these little pieces of ice that these polar bears are balancing on? You know, some are much bigger than a bin lid.
Oh no, yeah. Oh, they should. Shall I tell you what? What they should do is they should recruit all them. Go out and you know the ones that are balancing on a bin lid. Go out and save them and put them in a zoo. They'd be able to do tricks then, won't they? They'll already be able to like stand on like a little thing in middle. You know, it's ridiculous, isn't it? It's absolutely ridiculous. You know, how come? Right. Here's what I think. How come it's always the ones that are all fluffy and nice that are endangered, or the big majestic beasts that don't do well? There's never a fucking appeal because stick insects are going to fucking, you know. Well, here we go. You send us £3 a month and we'll protect these stick insects, and once a month we'll send you a stick.
They're not cuddly enough. They're not cuddly enough, are they?
Exactly. This is it. But you know. That's just for me. It's the begging bowl. They're trying to get us from everywhere. They're getting us where they tell us that we need to pay it. Then they're getting us where they tell us, oh, if you don't pay it, then something will happen to somebody. And then they're getting, oh, if you don't pay it's like they're saying, it's like having somebody stood there and saying, right, I've got a bucket full of puppies here. I'm going to stamp on one every hour until you make a £3 donation per month. That's what I'm going to do. And that's how far it's gone. It's ridiculous. I'll concede the floor.
Well, wasn't that what Live Aid was? You know, it was incessantly showing you pictures of these children who were dying, largely as a result of political decisions taken by the governments in those countries. And they were telling you to get your hand in your pocket. This was a bunch of multi-millionaires spending millions to broadcast across the world because they were a bit long in the tooth. Their careers were flagging. Their albums weren't selling. Fuck me, you should have seen the graph for their album sales after Live Aid. What a self-serving bunch of wankers.
Well, I always remember that article I read about that charity Bono set up, and it took something like, I don't know, let's call it 250 grand. I think something like 3 grand of it went to the actual charity. All the rest was, you know, obviously on costs and fucking CEOs and stuff like that.
Mm.
I'm getting harassed here by text, you know. Getting harassed because somebody's finding our subject boring, and I didn't wave to them, apparently. So, Michelle and the Thornleys, hello.
Hello, Michelle and the Thornleys. If you want us to talk about a subject that you find not boring, as long as it's, you know, not about X Factor or Emmerdale Farm or whatever, then please feel free to text Paul again and give him some ideas. In fact, keep texting him all night.
I like the comment we've just got from George Soros on Facebook Live. Nice to know you're listening, George. Stop fucking the world up, will you? It says perfectly induced on St. George's Day, which, yeah, it kind of makes you think it might have had a bit of a nudge, don't you?
And Tequila Leeds in the chat room has said, is Michelle single?
No, she's married.
Oh dear me! I don't know. I think Adi might have to take him to on his next holiday with him. You know, it'll be companionship for him, won't it? And they'll be able to compete. It'll be competitive. Can you imagine that? You know, where they're all being competitive over who can move on quickest.
Well, if he's with Adi, he's guaranteed a jump out of the way, then, isn't he?
You know what?
Sorry.
He's still there, Andy?
Yeah, I went to play my Super Leagues jingle and it didn't work, so sorry about that.
Oh,
Is there anything fucking working here tonight?
No.
Not even us. We're not working. And Webby told us at half time, if you weren't listening on Facebook Live, you won't know this, but since at half time he had wood. He got wood. And
bikini-clad dancers behind him.
And the bikini-clad dancers behind him.
I asked him, he refused.
Yeah, so boys, is there any... when it comes to charities,
you said you wanted to touch on Facebook, something to do with the data stuff with Facebook again.
The Cambridge Analytica stuff. It's not I were really more aiming towards. I don't really know much about that. We'd have to probably get Neil Sanders on who'd tell us absolutely everything about it. Failing that, I don't know very much about the data stuff. I know that the shit's hit the fan, but again, it's another distraction, isn't it? It's something there's going to have no consequence. There's going to be no consequences to Mark Zuckerberg at all, none whatsoever. Right? It's just like Theresa May. There'll be no consequences for her for bombing Syria. There's no actual consequence. She might end up losing a job. But there's going to be no actual consequences. She's still going to be in the same position she is now after she's been sacked. Look at David Cameron. You know, he came along and he did all this stuff and he just disappeared. That's what they do. They disappear.
Well, I think a lot of people are probably not aware of the fact that once you get into that office as Prime Minister, doesn't matter what reason you leave, you get paid the Prime Minister's salary until you fall off your perch. So, you know, it doesn't matter if you live another 40 years, you're still getting what the PM's getting the day you die.
Yeah.
It's fucking
But when if you look at the fella who was voted for the pension age to go up to 68, he just retired at something like 49, is it? Something like ridiculous.
Yeah. On a £2 million pension.
It might be 59, sorry, something like that.
Yeah.
We're expecting people to work to 68, possibly into the 70s. It's not acceptable. How much longer do people put up with it? I understand the bit about people saying that we must pay our bills. You can't pay your bills. It's impossible. So why don't you look at the alternative? Because there's going to come a point where the rug will get fucking pulled from under your feet. And if you haven't bothered to even look at any of this, you'll be fucked. You've got to take some responsibility for it, for yourself. I mean, it came to me. I had no fucking choice. But I now know that I've got to at least talk about this stuff, spread the information, because I want a better world for my daughter. No, my daughter lives in a cucumber castle on top of a cherry oak tree with unicorns. She's not going to get this stuff. I've got to do it for her.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's encouraging to see some of the young folks that really do get it, but to see the vast majority of it, oh man, it's just.
Well, and I understand it's difficult, and it's the fear. I mean, I know so many good people who work. You know, they work fucking hard. Some work 2, 3, 4 jobs to keep a lifestyle that they only needed the one job 10 years ago to do.
Yeah.
And they just keep working harder because that's the ethic that they've been taught. And then when somebody comes around, like a dickhead like me comes along and says, hey, do you know that your gas is free? Fuck off, that blows people's minds because it's everything we've been taught the opposite. So I get it. It's just that how many times do you keep repeating that you can't pay for this, you can't do it?
I've had so many people say to me, look, I know what you're saying is true, but just fuck off, I can't handle it.
Yeah.
Don't want to know.
That's exactly what people are like, and I understand the fear. I really do. I've stood there. I've felt that fear. I understand it. It's not a nice place to be in, but it's what you want to leave for your children, your grandchildren. I mean, I had a British gas fitter who told me that he understood everything I'd told him, but he was still going to teach his kids to pay the bills. I said, but you're teaching them to pay bills that they can't pay. So you're telling them lies. Well, people will always get upset about that, but at the end of the day, the truth is the truth, no matter which way you want to go around it. It's one of those.
It just astounds me what people are prepared to put up with for the sake of fitting in, not sticking out, not being not one of the crowd. And for me, I think it's a heavy price to pay, but
I don't. I fucking hate them. They're all idiots. Most of them. I do. So I prefer to be on my own. I prefer to be, you know, I prefer to be, I like to be with like-minded people, but, you know, in a situation where I'm in a social situation, I'm terrible. I get so anxious that I'm just going to piss somebody off. Because, you know, if somebody says something to me, I live in Sheffield, right? And you know what? If something goes off and somebody will say it's them fucking Muslims or something or other, and you know, I'm in a group of people who are all white, middle-aged blokes, and someone starts spouting off stuff like that, I just have to say something. The amount of times I went into a butty shop once in just outside Huddersfield. I went into a butty shop and I'm watching. I'm in and I've ordered me butty and I'm waiting for it. And there's a bunch of like blokes in, you know, with hard hats and IVs on, and they're obviously working for, you know, one of these digging up things or whatever. Probably cone putter out of us and cone taker in us on motorway. I don't know, something daft like that. But they were. So, and I hear two of them talking about something, and they were going, oh, and it was really ridiculous. And I said, you don't believe that, do you? I actually interrupted him. I said, you don't actually believe that, do you? Yeah, of course I do. It's here. I said, yeah, that's a piece of paper, mate. It's a piece of paper, and someone's written something on it to manipulate you so that you've got them views. Anyway, my butty arrived then, so I managed to get out quick. But, you know, I've always been in that situation. But when you look at, let me just read this out, and you'll understand what I mean. I've just done a BBC News search. Here's the 3 top stories. The first one is multiple pedestrians hit by van in Toronto. I suppose they're having to do that because that's their gig, innit? That's what they're putting on. If that's what they're doing, I don't know. Then you've got the royal baby, Duke and Duchess of show off new lizard. And then the third one, right, this is one of the top stories. US soldier gets first penis and scrotum transplant.
Hang on, was that a female?
No, US soldier, a male. No, I don't know. Actually, I've not clicked on.
So he's got somebody else's cock and balls now.
Yes, he has. He's playing with someone else's knob all the time.
Wow.
I mean, how confusing is that?
That's going to fuck you up psychologically, that, isn't it? That's going to fuck you up psychologically.
He'd been wounded by a bomb in Afghanistan. Shouldn't have been there. They used a penis, scrotum, and partial abdominal wall transplanted from a deceased donor. So he's got a dead man's. He's not only got a knob. He's got a dead man's knob. It's not like said. I'll tell you what. Have you got? You know, you're doing all this transgender stuff. You know, can you just stick one on ice that you chop off? And I'll wait for that, because, you know, he obviously don't want it, but it'll still be alive, won't it? But no, they give a dead bloke. And then, what does he do? He wakes up and his dick's black.
I don't know.
What does he do?
He might be really happy.
It might be. It depends. Is it enormous? Is it the stereotypical one?
You've got to think, guys, is it better to have a dead man's dick than no dick? And, you know, it depends how much you value it.
How much you value your dick? Well, I think most men value the dick above everything else. Perhaps the testicles might come a little bit further because they're more painful than your dick. But men holding esteem
their dicks. It's always the first thing, in my experience, it's always been the first thing that women threaten you with if you've upset them really, well, not even really badly.
Yeah.
I've been threatened with my balls being cut off quite a few times.
And now imagine it, right? Now we've got a situation where a woman can potentially make money from that. You know, can profit from domestic violence upon her husband, because nobody ever believes it when it's husband that's being violated against, is it? So it's always got to be a woman. I'm sorry to any women out there that have been domestically abused, but I have myself, so I know what I'm talking about. But you know, it's just
like the male side of it hardly ever comes out, Jason. You know, I'm speaking from personal experience. That kind of stuff it's never talked about, but it does go on. But they always expect it to be the man violating the woman. I mean, not all violence is physical, is it?
No. Henry's brought up an interesting thought, though. If you've got a dead man's dick and you rape somebody, you could say, well, it wasn't me.
Excellent. With the chat on Facebook Live has got a little bit rapey.
Well, we are pioneering some subjects of late, aren't we?
But you see, that's the thing, though, isn't it? There's the top 3 stories. One's serious, one's just showbiz gossip type shit, and the other one is the one that what you're supposed to do. It's supposed to bring out your inner schoolboy, and you start giggling about it, like we have. You know, we've started giggling about it, and you know, it's that poor bloke's must be busting for a piss, for fuck's sake, if he's just had his knob put back on after a few years. Jesus Christ, can you imagine that? But yeah, that's what it's there to design to do, and people then don't critically think.
What if he gets stage fright because it's somebody else's cock that he's looking at? He could be stood at the urinals forever.
What? Well, he might do, They might do. But, you know, or somebody looking at his cock, because they've heard about him on news. Oh, he's just going in bog. I'll go and stand next to him at your urinal. Have a look, have a butcher's at this thing here. See what they've given him. Anyway.
I think that was a Sheffield thing, that, Andy, you know.
Yeah, it must be, yeah.
It's either that or going on Wiggy's buses and getting hard-ons. There's something not right about them lot over there.
Certainly a funny crowd.
Oh, yeah, superb. Superb. Well, we've got half an hour left. We've got half an hour to munch into. Looks like we've got our guest for tomorrow, so that's going to be pretty awesome. We're looking forward to speaking to Owen again. And I know it's not been very long since we last spoke to him, but you know, we just have to grab the chance when we can, when he's got the batteries. So yeah, looking forward to that. Right, fellas, what we're doing for this last half hour? What do we do? Oh, look at this. Shall I hang it up at window and I get sent to prison?
More than likely, mate.
Did you see that?
Oh,
that
God.
one?
That'll be Facebook Live finished now, won't it? Putting a bloody gollywog up.
That's you done that, mate. You're done now, Jason.
And I've said it as well, so that's it. We'll be...
Pat your kits, lads. Give them your name, give them your address.
There was that story, weren't there, last week about that bloke who'd hung one up in his upstairs, his first floor window, just as a I don't think he was intending anything by it, but he was just, well, it was there anyway. So, but he'd been charged with something and found guilty.
Haven't you seen that story about the guy who's on remand because he posted a picture on Facebook of his dog doing a fucking Nazi salute?
Yeah, he's got an 800 quid fine, I believe.
Yeah, he's out. He's not in prison anymore. He's out, isn't he?
Yeah, he's out. Right. Yeah, got an 800 quid fine for teaching his dog to salute. It's madness because everybody agreed that it was a joke, but it still seems to be something that they've had to make an example out of.
It's the system.
I think it's because they're going to start using that more.
It just marches on, indefatigable. Oh, that were a big long word, wasn't it?
Also, don't you think in there that there's a big element of we're losing comedy? It's been taken away from us because you're not allowed to say this, you're not allowed to say that, you're not allowed to make jokes about people who are different to you, who are from a different country to you, who look different to you. Who the fuck do you make a joke about?
Well, that's just it with this political correctness stuff now, isn't it? Because they're saying that you can't use language in case that you upset somebody. Well, every time, if you're actually going to think for yourself, you're always going to risk offending somebody. If you're not going to risk offending somebody, you're not going to be able to think. So therefore, the fact that you've got free speech, I have the right to be able to offend somebody. That won't be my intention, but people don't like hearing stuff that goes against what they believe to know to be true. And even though they've never looked at new evidence, and they're more than capable of looking at it and understanding it, they'll say, no, that's bullshit. They won't bother looking at it.
No, because they're victims of a system that is being quite successful at turning people into non-thinking robots who just repeat what they're told without thinking about it.
Exactly.
And that's exactly what we're up against. And it's a clever system. They've done a good job with it.
It's interesting to see what's going on through the university campuses and the legislation that they're trying to pass, where we've talked about it before, Jason, where they're saying that you've got to use certain pronouns because you risk offending somebody who's transgender if you call them he or she. That shouldn't be being enforced by anything. Now, that sounds, if you're coming from the compassionate side and saying, you know, oh, let's be nice, that type of thing, there's that, but being forced by law to have to say something, that is taking control of language. That means there is now somebody's compelling me to use a certain pronoun. And if I don't use it, I'm allegedly in trouble. That's dangerous. That's a dangerous precedent. That's an ideology that takes us down a certain path where we know what happens down that path. So people can say, oh, you think that transgenders are like Nazis or they're like communists? No, but that's the ideology. We've seen where it goes.
They're victims. The victims, like everybody else, the victims of this system. Everyone's a victim in one way or another. Whether it's they fuck your head up and you think you're a fucking woman, or you think you're a fucking, I don't know, a fucking dung beetle, or they fuck your head up because your education's been so bad that you've been indoctrinated, you've been trained rather than being educated, so you can't critically think. And if there's nobody around you to critically think, you know, it only takes a couple of generations before all the critical thinkers have gone. So, you know, it seems that's the plan. It's from every single angle you can think of, even the skies, even up in the skies, they're still attacking us. And this is what the system is. It's like a constrictor that gets around your body. And
as soon as you start joining them dots, what you've done there, where if you just talk about one of the subjects, people will start listening. But when you start joining these dots, they can't believe that the conspiracy could be that big. Well, we've got bigger news. It's not that big. It's fucking that big. It's bigger than that. You know, I mean, you've only got to listen to the likes of Kennedy's speech when he says it's a conspiracy so big that nobody would believe it, that it actually exists. And when you look back through the years and how carefully and how slowly they've prepared all this, reading their own papers, it's not about having a theory. If somebody writes that they're going to kill you and you find that document and then somebody tries to kill you, you're going to go, hey, when they wrote about this, I think they were quite serious. And they're writing about stuff 200 years ago that is actually happening. They are writing the script. And we know about the wars and we know about the rumours of wars. We know about the false flags. We know what's being blamed. These fucking actors are that shit. They don't know what else to do other than keep acting through the same rhetoric. This is why those people who still think that voting is going to change something, I think are going to have a rude awakening, because politics, in my opinion, has created this mess. So politics can't fix it. It's the same consciousness. You've got to start with something different.
Did you want to say something, Andy?
I couldn't agree more. I think you're absolutely nail on the head there, mate. I do really despair at what's going on, but I can also understand why, you know, why people just they can see what's going on, but they just won't accept it, you know, because, I mean, I read 1984 as a about 15 years old, and my English teacher impressed upon me how important this book was. He said, because you will see as you read it that parts of it have already started to come true. And he said 1984 is not far away, so I suggest you take in the message. And that message has been screaming in my head ever since. You know, I think that's why I've never fitted in really anywhere. I think that's why I've probably had, well, I gave up counting at 60 jobs, and the longest periods of me working life, I felt self-employed anyway. So, you know, I've never been one to fit into a particular box, but once you really start digging into it, well, your life is just so totally different that you just can't imagine it.
I found that things that happened to me growing up as a child, things that I batted off and didn't even think I needed to know them or anything like that. Just like you read 1984, and then you've seen that something's happening, but life does take over for a period, doesn't it? But my thing that stuck with me was, which I've mentioned so many times now, is that history lesson where I wrote the subject, and the title was Bills of Exchange Act 1882, and I put the pen down, and I remember leaning back in my chair like that, putting my hands behind my head and saying, I'm never going to use this. And it's everything. And I blanked it out. I completely blanked it out until when I started to learn about it. And then when you realise just how this banking system is actually set up to work, that without you, there is no banking system, there is no economy, they can't launder anything, they've stolen everything physically worth anything, they've stolen, it's all in private hands. The only thing that we have left is credit. This is about 23 trillion, but the less stuff we manufacture, the credit's going to drop. The credit is only based on the potential of the workforce. That's, you know, we've used the Bradbury pound. That's what's being promoted now. John McDonnell and Jeremy Corbyn have both signed petitions for this to be brought forward when they were backbenchers. They're struggling to get in touch with them now. They don't seem to be interested. Now, the Bradbury pound did exactly what the Lincoln Greenback did, which was balance not America's books. And Hitler, when he took over, he brought in national credit, and they were buying bonds straight from the Treasury. They were being paid from the Treasury, and they were getting, you know, they were giving them incentives, that family cars. Everybody was driving around in Volkswagen Beetles. All this produced a super country. Do you know, it's easily done when you realise that you can't keep trying to pay a debt with more debt. It doesn't work. It's stupid. And I know it doesn't sound right, but we've not been taught how the banking system works. We don't understand it. You've got to unlearn everything you've been taught and start from scratch.
Absolutely. Yeah, completely. I mean, when I first met my wife, maybe 10 years ago, around about 10 years ago, we met, and she was a manager at Lloyd's TSB, as it were, at the time, and I would try, as you can imagine, you know, I'm just starting a relationship with a bank manager, and I don't really want to just go all in. I was writing articles about Ron Paul at the time, and things like that, and about American Constitution and things like that, and so I didn't want to overstimulate her, if you know what I mean. And then she just suddenly came home from work one day, and she said, "You know what I found out today?" I said, "What?" She said, "All money is debt." I said, "Yeah, I know. I've been saying that, but you've been turning off." Oh, fuck it. Anyway, she didn't. She lasted another couple of years, but I think tide turned when her son, who were 10 at the time, I think he must have been 10 at the time. He were ill, and I ended up taking him down to the doctors, and it turned out he got type 1 diabetes, and he were in a really bad way, and he were almost in a coma. We had to go rushed into hospital. And so she said, "Right, I need to go to the hospital, children's hospital. My son's in there. They think he's got diabetes." And they were, "Oh, well, when are you going to be back? You're going to be back this afternoon." So she just never went back. But that's the sort of, and then we're talking that the people that were saying that, they're low-level people, but they've still got that high-level mentality, because they know that the more of a cunt they can be, the higher they're going to get. And that's what you were saying earlier on. You know, when you were saying how somebody said that the top-down solution perhaps would be best. Well, yeah, it would be best, but you know, everyone's scrambling to try and get up there, right? And climbing all over everybody. So if there's one person that's going to stand up and say, hang on a minute, they're just going to get rid of them, because there's always another one that's going to come in and do what they're told. So it has to come from the bottom up. And also from the bottom up, there's more of us.
Yeah, and like I've not known as many people talk about wanting real. You know, when I hate to hear the term real change these days, because it's, you know, with all the potentials, that all the changes that have had from all over the world, all this real change that we've had, it's never come as this real change. But something's happened. Something started to evolve from everything, from the small things that collapse. Something else evolves out of it. You know, we've been talking about this for a while now, and people are actually having conversations rather than, you know, just blanking everything out. But I think the action part's only going to come when they encounter it themselves, or a loved one encounters it. I mean, I can't imagine anybody this day and age who I know, if their grandmother or their mother was potentially being ripped out of their house, and they've done everything that they believe is genuine, and they believe that the bank's done something wrong, then they might take this up. But we've got into so many positions. I've seen an article today that Anthony Carlin published. There's something happened with his court case today. There's Santander have announced that they've sacked the solicitor from the case. So there's another interesting thing. What's going on here? Because people are now fighting back. You know, the Irish lads and girls have been fighting this longer, in my opinion, than we have.
Oh, yeah,
because of the 2008 collapse, when they came for everybody's properties. People were making offers, genuine offers, were, look, I can't afford to pay what you're asking, but I will pay this. Well, they're just trying to enforce agreements. That's not what they're there for. They're not there to enforce agreements, but that was the grab. And I'm glad that somebody who's gone through, I've gone through everything what Anthony's gone through, and Anthony's still there, still fighting it. You know, I've doffed my cap to people like that, because people like us get put into those positions, and then you come out the other side and you found all this information out and you're wanting to give it to people, and all you get is proof. I want proof. I want proof. How does that work? Well, do you know what? I'm trying to learn, and I'm pretty damn sure we've got it right, but we're missing something they're dancing around under. Seeing as everything that when you walk in there, everything is presumed, everything. So you've got to spend the entire case rebutting every presumption. Well, that's playing the game. You've got to look for the simplicity of it. We found the simplicity, but we've got to get it to the right jurisdiction. Once it's there, we've got to get people who's going to preside over that, who are going to be those non-biased. There are some good people still left in the system, but unfortunately, these people are being selected for people like ourselves who are going before these courts to try and put a stop to it. And people are being selected, and we're being put into the position of burden of proof then. And that means we've got to start forking out, doing the process. And, you know, it's the red tape. They can keep you in the long grass as much as they like. So people want proof. Well, people have got to get off the fucking arses and do something and help people who are trying to do it. It's that simple. You can't sit at home and expect people to save you from what's coming, because when it comes, it's going to be too late. Whereas we could easily put a stop to it. Henry Ford said, Jason mentioned it the other week, you know, if people woke up to how the banking system actually worked, there'd be revolution overnight.
And they ought to be as well. They ought to be. Obviously, we're coming from a biased point of view, because we're like the ones that have been kicked by this system, and that's what it takes. And but for the last sort of 13 minutes, what I want to talk about is the mental effect that this has on you, on people personally, because I know we all saw last week what happens when things get on top of you mentally, and that's what happened to me last week, and so I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying that's the reason why that happened last week. It's all mental, and this is really difficult to. Well, I've found it anyway. Found it really difficult. It's okay to, when you realise that it's there, you can manage it and you can stop it. But when you don't feel it creeping up on you, and everything that you see, you know, when you're researching these things, everything that you see, you get this little thing, and it might have a little effect on you, a little effect, a little effect, a little effect, a little effect, and then all them things are in your subconscious, because you don't know, you don't read the articles, you'll just see the headlines, and that just goes straight into your subconscious, and you won't forget that headline. It'll be there. You'll be able to recall it at some point, and it's always in there. But again, it's these where you see. Like that, the story with the baby Alfie today, that's traumatic. That's going to have a devastating effect on a lot of people's mental health, and that's all. They probably wouldn't even know about it apart from on the news if it wasn't for social media. So, what effect do you think social media is having on people's mental health?
Do you want to go first, Andy?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've seen, well, when I first started doing this radio things, I remember it vividly. Tom said, you'll see something over the years that you're involved. Tom had been doing it quite a few years, and he said, you'll see something strange happen with people. And he said, a lot of people who get involved in this, they either just one day just disappear and you never hear from them again, or they go totally fucking bonkers live on air. And I thought, oh, last week.
So we've been there and done that then, lads.
Yeah, but I've actually seen that happen to people. And you know, I've seen people who start believing they really are this fucking superhero character that they portray, and they're not, and it just makes me laugh and despair at the same time.
It's despair's the right word, but these days I just tend to have general conversations. It's like Jason was saying when he was in the butty shop. Conversations come up where you can bring real conversations into real life. It doesn't matter what the subject is, and you open the subject, and straight away I can tell if people are actually interested in listening. You can tell within the first couple of words, because you either get a facial reaction where you can see that, oh, they're not interested, or you get the, "Phew, that's over my head," you know, all that kind of stuff. It's because people don't want to stop and think, because life is fucking hard. Life's hard enough without having to think about the banks are stealing from us. Yeah, well, we know that. Then why don't you stop it? Oh, you've got to do that. You've got to do this. You've got to pay that. And that program reboots back in. You know, I've seen my mum and dad who were completely in rut with that program, but my mum would play the system. She would pay a bill when she wanted to pay it. She'd wait to the red one just to even tease them if she wanted to do something else with the money. But she was doing that with bills that she weren't liable for, that she couldn't pay. And this woman ran businesses, Andy. So it was disrespectful to my mum that all her hard work, you know, and the system stole everything, because I inherited the property that was stolen. So my mum and dad working like that in a system that was stealing from them, then stole what they'd worked so fucking hard for with no authority. That was that's a cunt trick, that. And, you know, somebody had to do something. And certainly people had said to me, why don't you just sell up and start again? I said, because they couldn't do what they were doing. And they couldn't understand that. But like I said, if you go through it, I'm not the type of guy who'll say, well, will you pull my pants up for me when you finish bumming me? You're going to fucking fight me.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what we've all got to have on it. That whatever your fight is. I mean, some people have got big fights. You know, they've got the mortgages on the line or whatever. But some people will have little little problems like a parking ticket or something that some initial, you know, when people get that initial parking ticket and that's from like a shopping centre or something, you know, it's been sent by a private car parking company.
Yeah.
And you know, someone will gets one of them, and then they go, "Oh my God." And they post it online. Oh, look at this! I've got a bloody another parking ticket again. And then somebody pops underneath that and says, "Actually, you don't need to pay that. It's just an invoice. It's nothing. You don't need to pay it. You don't even need to think about it. Just throw it in the bin." And like the one that my dad's been having, I've had 2 more letters for my dad here for a parking violation that allegedly happened in Leeds. I just chucked him in bin. I don't need to write to him and say you've got wrong bloke, or you've got wrong house, or you've got wrong this, you've got wrong this. No, none of my business. You know what they want to do. That's Steve's business, not mine. So just because they've sent it to this address, don't indicate me in any way, shape, or form. And so, like you said before, I think we were discussing it before, they're fishing for somewhere to send court papers. That's all they're doing, and they're not going to get it. They just will not get it. But yeah, it's when somebody gets a little problem like that, and then somebody will post underneath, you don't need to play that, and then they look into it a little bit more. That's what we're missing out. You'll get people who'll say, oh, you don't need to pay that, just chuck it in the bin, and then that'll go away, and then they're back at the life again, and they're, you know, violating parking regulations on a regular basis in different places, instead of looking and thinking, hang on a minute, if this is one simple thing like this, if this is so wrong and so out of place, what else am I missing? What else is there? Because let's face it, this world doesn't seem right, does it? It seems upside down, completely upside down. You know, we're Syria, they do. I think it's well known now that the Syrian chemical attack were false flag. It were just made up. Russia today's been spewing it everywhere that UK set it up and did it. But on that, you see, Syria's bombing its own people, right? Well, we need to go and bomb them as well. You know, it's like we're joining in. Yeah,
you've got the Novichok as well. You've got the Novichok that is, you know, the evidence shows that it's been patented in the US. Yeah. So the plot thickens with all this stuff.
But you see, the plot thickens, but the
twisted.
The plot thickens, but the problem is that the plot is only ever then seen by thick people. You know what I mean? That's the thing, and I don't mean to be that, because that's derogatory. I don't mean to be nasty. Everybody who lives in this society, right, who isn't aware of what's going on, for me, is a victim, right? They're a victim of their own education system. They're a victim of the parents' education system, probably as well, because that's when it started going. We're on like a 3rd generation now. My kids would be having kids. So if I'd have, you know, when I was growing up in the 80s and Thatcher were just like taking us milk and just everything. If I'd have gone the way of most of my peers, I wouldn't have known a dicky bird. Most of the people I went to school with don't know a thing. They don't know anything about anything. They've just learned how to survive in their own little bubble. And then what happens is something gets taken away from them. Perhaps they get the tax credits get lowered because, you know, obviously we need to lower tax credits because we can't afford bombs if fucking poor people are getting money, for fuck's sake. So what do they do? Then they try to adapt, and they adapt and they adapt. Instead of looking outwards, they look inwards towards how they can adapt their situation, and not what is the thing that is shagging me up the arse and meaning that year by year, in real terms, year on year, I'm worse off. I'm poorer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I don't know what to say now.
Well, I think there's only one thing that I can add to that, and I'm going to quote Heath from the chat room. Life's hard, but as long as there's weed.
Yes. Amen to that, brother Rabbit, as he likes to be called.
I think just going back to that a bit, Jason, it's there's been so much of a fear that's been instilled into people, and people govern themselves and keep themselves within that little box of theirs, you know, that bubble, what you were saying, just to survive. They cover all the bases in order to survive.
Yeah.
But that's what the system does. It teaches you that. It trains you to do that. And, you know, it's like when my mum said to me, she said, that's life. Well, who told you that? Who told you that that's life? And why is that my life? But I still fell into that. I think some people, especially somebody like me, I had to lose everything to learn this stuff because I don't think I would have. I don't think if I'd have learned it, I don't think I'd have used it. Don't know if I'd have had the balls. But when people have got you by the balls, what are you going to do? You're just going to stand there and have a ball transplant.
Well, something a good point that Tequila Leeds has made in the chat room there, and really it's at the nub of it. We're going to be the first generation to have lower living standards than our parents. Hello, fucking wakey.
Yeah, we've certainly gone retarded, haven't we?
Yeah, but if you said that to a kid, they'd say, "Hang on a minute, though, no," because when my parents, they didn't have an iPad, they didn't have an iPhone, they didn't have all this, they didn't have that, they didn't have all that. But when the kids don't realise that these things are the things that are making them, that are trapping them, that are enslaving them.
Yeah,
I've got good mates who are still involved in stuff like that. This lad watches other people play games online. That's what he does. He watches people play games online because that's what he's interested in. Now, I've shattered his illusions with some of the stuff I talk about. And he's a very intelligent lad. And he can't. You can see the program keep rebooting as you start getting through to him with some things, because there's just some things that are just irrefutable if you've not researched. If you're coming from a soundbite perspective, like so many people do, a lot of people think they know a lot about a lot of subjects. But when you get into a subject and you think, well, I pretty know this inside out, at least the concept of it, anybody to challenge that must understand the concept as well. And if they can challenge your concepts, then possibly you could be wrong. But if you can't even get somebody to challenge the concepts and come up with an argument, then you've got to go on the basis that you're correct. And there's everything that I've talked about is all put into the direction where, yes, we know there's something wrong. Yes, this is very strange that somebody's claiming I owe them something, yet they're sending me payment to settle it. That is a very strange concept. But when you understand it as that how it works, and you go to these places who are using their own legislation, and you go, yeah, I'd like to settle it through this transfer by endorsement, and then it's, there you go. You know, it's madness. You've got to come on and to any subject, and you've got to research it, but then step away from it and say, where would the money go with this, and what is linked with that money? And when you get it through also these Bank of International Settlements, all these money laundering places, you always come back to the same place, the establishment, which is the banks and the Crown, whichever way you want to look at the Crown being just a corporation, and the royalties, the bloodline families. You can take it back wherever you want. All you can do is, though, say these dots are connected. I don't know what the picture is, but it's looking like a fucking big picture.
Well, the big picture, yes. Well, we're at the end of the show. It's flown by, as Andy always says. But now we've come to the end of the show. It's 9 o'clock. Thank you very much to everyone for listening. Thanks to everyone in the chat room. Tequila Leeds was making the point that we are going to be the first generation to have lower living standards than our parents, and he's only 43. And his dad, only my dad worked as well. So, and that's another thing. They got women into workplace that were Thatcher, weren't it? And that were a way to fracture families and disrupt them. But I'm sure we'll probably get into that a little bit more tomorrow. We've got tomorrow night. Andy, why don't you in your own diminishable way finish off the show? Tell us who we got on tomorrow night, and then wrap it up for us.
We got Owen on tomorrow night. Yeah, Owen, he said that he was concerned about his daughters, I think, with this Windrush resettlement, whatever they call it, deporting people who've been here for generations. So he's going to come back and have a chat to us live from Portugal. Been a great chat, folks, guys. Really enjoyed it, and I've got a little bit of something special going to play out with from Heath. So thanks, Heath. Are you going to say good night, guys?
Good night, everybody.
Yeah, night, lads. Good show. Enjoyed it. See you all tomorrow.
That's it, guys. We're off.
Hang on. I've ended the live video. Hang on.
Here we go. Here we go.
Yeah, I'm going to check. Not fucking saying out till it's
Ending
gone
live
off.
video, it says.
So, man,
Still going here.
It's still going, yeah. It's still going, yeah. It says ending live video. Look, I'll show you.
Oh, it's frozen. It's probably,
I don't see anything on that, Jason.
Oh, it's still live.
Right.
I can see you on your webcam showing me it's fucking infinity now. Ending live video.